Kalala Yahweh, Bashima Mashak Yabasha, Tawaraba, Barakata, Halalaya, Shemaya Shabala Yahweh, Alahaya Nawaka, the Bar Mashbuka, Shalom. May peace, serenity, and prosperity be multiplied unto you all. Now I'm going to make this lesson pretty quick and efficient. Abarataza. If Habarak Kodash sees otherwise, then this video will go longer. However, we're going to expose the deception of death culture. Yeah, death culture, the deception of it. A lot of you all know it as hip hop culture, right? You know, I spoke on this a little bit before in the past, but I'm going to emphasize it. I'm going to emphasize the degenerate aspect of this genre and how it was polluted by Amalek, because we all know who runs the hip hop industry, Amalek, and how Amalek is pushing poison to the diaspora. Flavorful poison. That's exactly what it is. And especially with this drill music that's out. Nothing but death. Yet through the folly and ignorance of a lot of our people, you glorify the bullshit. You glorify all that bullshit that come with it. And Amalek is profiting with your despair. Now we're going to expose this mentality with one character that has been appropriately documented by the Most High in our holy manuscript. That character is none other than Nabal. Yes, Nabal, who is also coined to be a son of Belial. And we see Belial here means without profit, worthlessness, by extension, destruction, wickedness, evil, naughty, ungodly, and wicked. So Nabal is tied to all of that. And at the same time, Nabal means stupidity, wickedness, and foolishness. So you all can read this on your own time. However, I'm just going to touch on a few scriptures in particular to this message to relate how this death culture is none other than a derivative of Belial, aka Nabal, who is a son of Belial, as our holy documentation tells us. Everything you glorify and all that bullshit you glorify behind some flash and some rhythmic beats is Belial. Especially if you're doing exactly what they're talking about doing in these profane, poisoned, hypnotic sounds of music. Yeah. And see, the Most High even added to this lesson because I put out the notice for this lesson when? Tuesday or Wednesday. And just recently, you have a prominent figure. I can't talk right now. Y'all forgive me. Y'all have a prominent figure who just passed away. A prominent figure of this concept of Bilal. And many of y'all know him as Irv Gotti. Yeah, just another derivative of Bilal. And a lot of you in the diaspora who don't know what the hell's going on and caught up in all that bullshit, y'all reading into what all the celebrities had to say in condolences to this man's death. But it ain't nothing but Bilal. But it's glorified because of the worldly success he has with it. But it's nothing but Bilal. I mean, come on. Come on. When he had his run in the late 90s and throughout the early 2000s, the name of his label was called Murder Inc. Bilal. Bilal. As we see here. That's exactly what all that is. Bilal. Let's go ahead and jump into some of these scriptures here to get a further concept of why many people have the spirit of Nabal on them, right? Because they worship Bilal. This is 1 Samuel chapter 25. And we're going to be jumping through scriptures here for time's sake. However, I do encourage you all to read this entire chapter, at least for the Shabbat. So this is during the time after the prophet Samuel's death. And there was a man who had a lot of worldly success. He was rich. And his name was Nabal. So as a recognition of his success, Malak Dawad heard of the shearing of the sheep he had. So he had a lot of sheep. And if you had a lot of sheep back then, that was a prominent sign of prosperity and wealth. So it says here, starting at verse 1, and Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in the house of Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Verse 2, and there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Verse 3, now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. So churlish means to be brash. He was wickedly brash and rude. Wickedly. Not just brash and rude, but wickedly brash and rude. That's what churlishness is. So Nabal was not only evil, he was also churlish. He was just a vile person. Verse 4, and David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep, And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. So when Malak Dawah heard of Nabal's success, he wanted to salute him. He was basically giving him salutations, and he was sending his men servants as messengers of good faith. We'll read it here. So Malak Dawah tells the young men, and thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not. Neither was there aught missing unto them all the while that were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes. For we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So here, Nabal was stunting on David, for lack of better terms, and to dumb it down just a little bit so you all know what's really going on here. Basically, it's like a nigger moment between Nabal and David's servants. That's what it was. Anytime you give a man props and he's feeling himself, he starts to feel himself, and then he starts boasting and bragging and then talking noise. Yes, that's exactly what Nabal did here to King David and to all of King David's estate and establishment and everything that represented King David. He stunted on them. And at the same time, he talked down on them for such a salute. So it says here, verse 12, so David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. So after this message was relayed to Malak Dawah, those were fighting words to Malak Dawah, because Nabal and all his haughtiness and arrogancy and rebellion basically talked down on King David for his salutation to him. So as soon as Malak Dawah got that message from his servants, he knew what he was dealing with, and he knew he had to purge wickedness out of Israel. So therefore, he girded up for war. So that's what that was about. He was getting ready to go ahead and take Nabal out of there. Verse 14, but one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master and he railed on them. So that's further context to what I just explained earlier on how Nabal received David's servants. Railing is to talk wickedly, to speak with reproach, and to slander. That's what railing means, or to rail somebody. So he basically talked down on them and spoke wickedly and just tore them down then and there. David and his servants, because his servants came in David's name. Says here, verse 15, but the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversing with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them, keeping the sheep. So not only did Malak Dawad's servants relay this good message, he also helped Nabal's servants out with the sheep while they were there. And Nabal talked wickedly and talked down and talked all that damn noise for such a good gesture. Verse 17, now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. So that's just somebody who's so ignorant. Yeah, I said ignorant. They're so ignorant and foolish that you can't come to them with any type of decency. They only know violence. They only know foolishness. That's the only language they speak. That's the only thing that they respect is violence and foolishness. Those are individuals of Belial. They embrace a death culture, which has been pimped and commercialized through a music genre called rap and hip hop. Now we're going to jump down to verse 21. Now David has said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me evil for good. So Malak Dawad did a favor for Nabal, and Nabal just spoke wickedly and foolishly toward David. Furthermore, Malak Dawad says, so and more also do Yahweh unto the enemies of Dawad. If I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. So, Malak Dawad was telling this to Abigail because Abigail, after hearing what Nabal did, she basically tried to make an amends with Malak Dawad. And you'll read that once you read the chapter for yourself, but I skipped over that for time's sake. So basically, Abigail took a lot of gifts and made an offering or a peace offering to David so that way he didn't kill Nabal and their establishment. So she tells Malak Dawad here in verse 25, let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. So Abigail was trying to fix up what Nabal did. Abigail was trying to clear the smoke that Nabal created with his foolishness. All right. Moving forward here. So basically, Malak Dawar ended up accepting Abigail's peace offerings because remember, Malak Dawar was coming with his men to smite Nabal for the wickedness he spoke against him in such a good and kind gesture and salute that Malak Dawar made toward Nabal for his success. So skipping down, we see here how the Most High went ahead and took Nabal out of here, right? So verse 36 says, and Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry with him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. So see, Abigail used wisdom here. So she knew it wasn't a good time to tell Nabal of the encounter she had with Malak Dawar because Malak Dawar was coming to kill him. Right? So she stopped that with the peace offering she gave over to Malak Dawar. So, Nabal was holding a party and he was drunk. She was like, okay, now's not a good time to do that. Now's not a good time to talk about this. And some of you sisters need to take note of that sound-mindedness that Abigail had. Okay? See, and I say that because some of you sisters can have your man enjoying himself and enjoying some strong drink, right? And something may be on your mind of concern, and you go to your man about that while he's enjoying himself or having something to drink. And you choose some of the most inopportune times to bring up serious matters. Therefore, you create issues in your union by not knowing when to speak on certain things. So I say that for the sisters that are listening, take good note of that and know and use wisdom. Pray for that wisdom to know when to speak on certain things. Because Abigail surely had that in her dealings with Nabal. So verse 37 says, but it came to pass in the morning when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that Yahweh smote Nabal, that he died. Yep. So the Most High took Nabal out of here. And this is another account that the Most High doesn't give a damn about any of your worldly prosperity. Because Nabal was a very wealthy man himself. Though he was foolish and though he was wicked, like many people are in the world. Many people that have high levels of prosperity and abundance, many are wicked and foolish. But this is shown as an example that the Most High doesn't give a damn about the prosperity and abundance that you may have, because at the end of the day, he decided to bless you with it. Yeah. Whether you got it by righteous means or unrighteous means, the Most High still allowed you to have it. And here we see Nabal was a very wealthy man and of high regard, so much so that Malak the Wild was like, hey, let me go ahead and salute this man for his success. But Nabal, being the man he is, thought he was just on top of the world the way he can stunt on Malak the Wild. And Malak the Wild was going to take him out of there himself, but the Most High intervened. The Most High intervened by sending Abigail to make a peace offering to Malak the Wild, and then taking taking Nabal out of here at his own power. So Nabal means foolishness, wickedness, stupidity. And we know Nabal was a son of Belial, which is worthlessness and destruction, unprofitable. So let that sink in. Are you giving yourself over to matters of Belial? Belial, excuse me. Are you worshiping Belial? Worthlessness, destruction, and wickedness. Are you deceived to adopt the different concepts of Belial, making you yourself another Nabal? All these scriptures came from 1 Samuel chapter 25. I encourage y'all to read the entire chapter for yourselves and meditate on it with this lesson in consideration. May peace, serenity, and prosperity be multiplied unto you all. Shalom.